There we go. Okie doke. Okay, so the idea of changing focal children came after staffing. Actually, in talking with Zoe and thinking through how the experience had been with the Lakeland Interns. So they experienced both observing the preschool children and doing the home visits, right? And it seems like you guys have more time and have more encounters with the home visit child and family than you do with the preschool child, and have more flexibility in terms of scheduling extra times to meet with them. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just easier, like with the pre-K, it's a set time, and I mean we can go any day of the week in the PM session or AM session. I just feel like it's more personal, and I like that we have contact with the parent. It kind of provides a different set of information that we don't get with the pre-K classroom.
Right.
For me, so like last week, my parent had to cancel our our meeting. And she has and I met with her today, and she has a son who's in school, and I was gonna ask her if I could like make her daughter my focal child, but I don't know, just from today, my experience today, I just felt like it was very rushed, and like I could hear her son's like teacher like speaking, and I don't know. So I was thinking of just asking the girl I nanny like to just be my focal child, if that's okay with you.
Okay. And you think that that's because you think you're going to have more access to her in terms of the assess? Because what's coming up is did you all complete your family visit?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And you were able to do it with your home visit child or with your observation, your pre-K child?
The home visit.
Yeah.
Home visit?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was another reason why I thought it would be good to change, is because if you have the home visit information for that assignment from your home visit child, then that's a lot of data right there that you have on that child. And then if you just continue to collect observations on that child from now forward, then you'll have at least half of your observations on that child. So that'll give you observations, it'll give you the home family visit data, and then you could schedule, if you could schedule, a different session to do the assessments, so the literacy assessments. That would probably be, because it's such a young child, it would be about concepts of print. That probably would be a good one to do with that age group. You might be able to do some of the alphabetic, but I don't know how, what, you probably are not going to get a very good response, and that doesn't mean the child sort of flunked that assessment. It's that developmentally they're not supposed to pass that assessment because it's a kindergarten assessment. And then the verbal assessment would be sort of to document their sentence structure, their pronunciation, sort of syntax in terms of communicating, oral communication, which is what you're going to be able to see through video, right? So if that's the case, if you can schedule an extra session to do the assessments, then that would be, which you're not able to do with the preschoolers, right? You're not able to meet with them.
No, I haven't even been put into the same breakout room more than once with my. They keep like rotating me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, so I think that definitely that would be the best way to do it. To switch to your home visit child, to be able to schedule another session with them to do the assessments, and to just collect observations while you're doing your home visit, your Judy Center curriculum for them. Observe how their expressive language is, how their receptive languages, and you probably have an idea already. If you have had sessions with this child, you probably have an idea of how that language is in terms of development in terms of the skills that they have.
So do you want our next observations that we submit to be on our home visit child, or are we still doing the observations on our focal, like the ones we submit on Blackboard? We're changing it to our home visit person, right? So the observations we submit should be about our home visit person?
Right, about your new focal child. So then now you just focus on your new focal child, and everything that you collect from here forward would be on that child.
But do we continue going to the sessions even though we don't have a focal child in them still?
Yeah,
or?
I think you should, because we've committed with them, and we should see it throughout the semester to be there. But you wouldn't be, while you're there, you're helping out the teachers in any way you can, but you're not necessarily focusing on observing your focal child and taking notes for those assignments. The other thing, too, is that there is a minimum number of observations. And it doesn't mean that you're including complete observations, but data points of your observations. So in one observation that you've submitted thus far, you might have several interpretations, right? So several. In the third column, you might have, in several occasions, talked about the child's expressive language, or in several occasions talked about pragmatics or syntax, or that aspect of their language knowledge. And so each of those individually can be counted as one point of data. So when you look at the profile assignment, where it has points of data from the family assignment, from the family visit assignment, points of data from the observations, and there's numbers. So that says, I think it's 20 for the observations, 10 for the family visits. Those are just aspects that you noted that you can say, okay, because I noted this, I can say this about the child's expressive language. Or because I noted this, I can say this about the child's syntactic language. But they all, for the family visit, they all came out of that assignment. And for the observations, you might have one observation that is really rich that gives you 5 different points of observation data, and then one that just gives you one, because that you only observed one thing that was sort of relevant there to talk about the language development. So that is not about, we've completed 5 observations, I only have 5 points of data. You have many more points of data within each of those 5 observations. So that's one thing. The other thing is, even if that's the case, that we're taking many points of data from each observation, you don't have the 20 that are the minimum requirement, then I'm going to waive that. I'm not going to require you to have the exact number of the minimum number of observations in order to get sort of full credit for that aspect of the assignment, because I know that might not have been the case, and not only for you guys, but for everybody. People have had their focal child fall ill and not come back to the center, or they've had the center closed because there was a COVID scare, and so they were out for 2 weeks, and things like that might make it difficult to meet that minimum amount of observations. So that, don't worry about those numbers in terms of, oh, well, I don't have all these data points that I can include. But from here forward, if you are changing to the new focal child, then focus everything on that child so that you're going to collect the most amount of information that you possibly can on that child for both of those assignments that's what we have left, and the observations that you're you're submitting from here forward. But yeah, the two assignments that you're feeding knowledge about your focal child into are the profile of language and literacy profile, and then the portfolio where you're including everything that you have. And I think it would be good if you already have the family visit with the heart map and the information from the parents and sort of the relationship with the family. That would be a good option to use. Now, Vicki, if you were going to change to a child that you babysit, so this is a completely new child, you'd be starting from scratch. So I'm just concerned about what would you include, because you'll have observations on one child, a family visit for another child, and then from here forward, a third child, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, like I think my family visit, the assignment I completed, like I mentioned in the assignment, it was just like very rushed. So I already have like a relationship with the parents of the girl I babysit. So I think I don't mind like redoing the assignment at all. I think it would help me have like a more complete like profile at the end. So I was just planning, and like I babysit her 3 times a week. So, and I'm there when she's like in her kindergarten class.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would just, all my observations would be like within like from tomorrow until like the assignment is due. But yeah, I think like overall I could have a more complete profile compared to like the girl I'm doing the Judy Center visit. It's just like very hectic with like her brother, and then I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I've just found that it's like very hectic.
Okay.
So far.
So then go with that child. If you think you can get information from the family to feed into the profile assignment, then that would be great.
Okay.
And you can do the assessments with her and the observations from here forward with her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going tomorrow, so I would ask the parents tomorrow. I'll just send you an email updating you on.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
I had a couple questions as well.
Okay.
Do we need to get any sort of parent consent form from the home visit family, or because we're working with them already, is that kind of consent?
So I would say if you feel like it would be okay with them and there would be no issue if you wanted to, because for the assessments you sort of need to schedule a separate session with them or extend one that you've already having, but just specifically to do the assessments. So if you feel like that's not going to be a problem, and you say, okay, I'm doing this for a class, can we schedule? And they say fine, then it's okay. If you think that it needs to be a little more formal, like you need to explain exactly what you're doing, and then send them the letter that we have and say, okay, this is what we're doing, and if you can just sign off on it, that would be great. And yeah, so gauge it to see what would work, because sometimes sending the letter, and then if they can't sign it and get it back to you, then they think that then you're sort of waiting for them to do that. And if they, for whatever reason don't do it, don't sign it, they're kind of thinking, oh, well, we can't meet until I sign this, and I haven't signed it for the past 2 weeks, and there you are waiting for that to happen, right? So so gauge and see if they would need it to move forward, or if you could just move forward without having that might delay you.
Okay. And then we have a little group chat, and Jasmine had asked a couple questions, and I figured I'd just ask for her. With the observations, do you want us to redo the ones that we have already done, or can we just start and
Yeah, no,
continue?
you start right now and continue. So
Okay.
at this point, you want to complete your, I think there's 7 that we have scheduled, right?
Mm-hmm.
To turn in. And we're probably like on number 5 right now, I think. So there's just a couple more to turn in.
Yeah, number 5 is due on Tuesday.
Right. So, yeah, I know number 5 is the next one, but let me double check. I think there's 7. Yeah. So, so you're just going to turn in from here forward just 2 on your focal child. But if you can observe things while you're with the child, jot them down, because everything that you observe on the child and just date it and say, okay, on this date I saw this, you can include in both your profile and your portfolio, without having to sort of count on, okay, well, I didn't turn this observation in, so it's sort of like it's not official. It doesn't matter if it's not official, because the observations as we turn them in are for those points allocated to that assignment. But your end goal is not only to complete that assignment, but to collect information on your focal child.
Right.
Just to
And then I
piggyback
think
that real quick.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So we have 3 observations left, 5, 6, and 7. Our next one, can it be on either of the children? Because I've already observed my pre-K child and like filled everything out, and I was waiting to turn it in.
Yeah. No, definitely. If you have it already, just turn it in what you have.
Okay. Sorry, Zoe.
It's okay. And then the last one was, and I know we talked about this when we met, but I think Jasmine was confused on how to teach the lessons, interact with the family, and also take observations.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind just sharing some stuff about that?
So typically, and this is, an observation is like the number one assessment tool that we as teachers have, right? And we're observing constantly. So right now we're in this meeting and I'm talking to you and I'm trying to like get my thoughts in order so it's coherent and you understand, but I'm also observing you and I can, pick up on body language and if I, after say this conversation, went and jotted things down and say, okay, observe this about Zoe and observe this about Vicky and Dom, right? And I can go in and write these down afterwards. Those notes I could turn into an observation that I'm submitting then. So it's not about, observing while it's happening, but really closely after it's happened, that you can take those notes and, to the best of your recollection, jot them down, specifically because we're looking at language. So how the child formulated the sentence when they answered a question, and what words did they use, and sort of what letters do they have difficulty pronouncing still. Because at that age, that's typical, right? That the pronunciation is not conventional. There's still issues with certain letters. And so if you can jot that down quickly after, that would be the way to take notes for observations, like the ones that we're doing, which are anecdotal records observations, because you're not going to be able to do it while you're teaching, while you're facilitating a lesson. You're not going to be able to be taking notes. So just take them as soon as you can after the experience is completed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or concerns about changing focal children?
About how long do you think the planned session, like the extra session, would need to be for the assessments?
Typically,
if I'd be able to just piggyback it or not.
It depends on which ones you select to do. But the majority of the assessments are just questions that you're asking the child. What letter is this? Do you recognize this one? If I show you 2 letters, can you point to the A or the B? Or like you're asking the child questions, and you obviously want to ask as many questions as you can, because you're collecting information on the child by their answers. But these are also very young children, so they're not going to be able to sustain a sort of interrogation for more than 5 or 10 minutes, right? So they're not going to, you're not going to be able to hold their attention for longer than that. So I would say anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes would be sort of the max of time that you would have to interact with the child, engage the child, and ask the questions so that you can assess them.
Okay. And which ones did you recommend again for these really young? Because obviously, like the name writing one wouldn't make much sense.
Right. Now that you can do the concept of print, in which you talk about sort of the parts of the book, and all of these are on Blackboard, so you can download them. The ones that have the sort of handouts available are there, and the concept of print is one of them. That there's a PDF that you can follow and the questions to ask, and then based on the answers you grade them, and it'll give you a score, and you can see where the child is. I think that would work with this age group. The alphabetic one might, and for the alphabetic you have to sort of prepare cards, like index cards or just construction paper cards with the letter, and it's both capital letters and lowercase letters, and that might be one that you could do also with the child. I don't necessarily think that the child is going to be able to tell you, okay, this is an A and this is a B. But what you can do with that one is have some cards with letters and have some cards with symbols or pictures and images that are not letters, and then see if the child can recognize which one is a letter versus one that is not. Because that would be the beginning of that alphabetical recognition, is to identify what symbols are letters versus symbols that are not letters. So that would be something that you would want to check and see if the child is able to do that. They still might not be there. They still might not be at the point where if you show them, say, a hashtag and an A, and which one's the letter, they might not know. But they might. Or if you show them a number 2 and a letter B, which one's the letter, they might be able to do it, they might not. And that would be something that you would want to know, in terms of their emergent literacy. Can they do it? Can they identify letters or not?
And if they're unable to do it, we don't have to do like an additional assessment, right? We would just note they were unable to do it.
Yeah. You just know they're not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I think those two would be good. I would, at that age, I would do sort of an auditory, like a speech assessment, in which you just note which letters, which phonemes they have difficulties with in pronouncing, and you note also the sentence structure. So do they include articles? Do they place the verb after the noun? Are they capable of doing this right now? Or is their speech still very telegraphic? And then you can identify exactly where they are in terms of oral language. So I think those 3 would be the most appropriate for an under 3 population, which is what you have, the Judy Center. And then Vicki, you said your child is in kindergarten, right?
Yeah, she's 5.5. I was actually looking at the developmental language portfolio example that you had, and the child is 7. So I think I would have to modify a little bit, but I was planning on just using that as a guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 And as you were explaining things, I think it makes more sense, like looking at the final product of what you want, like seeing all the data points line up and everything. So.
And you see that some of them present it with just, I don't know the exemplar that you have, but I know that students in the past have presented them as, some of them as bullet points, or some of them as dates. Like on this date, I saw this, this, and this, and there's like 3 or 4 things under the same date, for example, or bullet points. And each of the bullet points can be maybe part of the same date in terms of they were observed all on the same occasion, or maybe each bullet point is from a different date, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think I when I was studying in undergrad, that we had these kinds of assignments, I thought it was always interesting to me to do the assessment assignments because I wanted to know how the children performed. And it was, for me, it was exciting. And for the kids at this age, I think it can be exciting too, because it's a game, like it's okay, let's play this game and see, how much you know about this. And, but assessments can be stressful for children because, even at a young age, they know that you're grading them, like you're evaluating them. So try to make it as a game, as something, this is something fun we're going to do, and we're going to play with this, and I'm just going to ask you some questions, and you tell me what you think. But not formalize it like, okay, well, this is assessment time, and the clock is starting right now, and you pay attention because you have to do well, right? So if you do it like that, then the child might be very apprehensive and not give you the full level of development. That might not show up in the performance of the assessment because there's stress. So if you just present it as a game, as something fun, that I'm just going to ask you some questions and I'm going to show you some books, maybe if in the concepts of print assessment, for example, or I'm going to show you these cards and you tell me what you think, or what are they called, and just make it as a game, that I think that'll be fun for everyone. It will be fun for you as well. Although I think assessing is fun because of the data, and you're getting to know the child much more while you're doing it.
I was going to ask, so I think the type of relationship I have with, I guess what would be my new focal child, is like she does school and then like we go off and play afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I think she would think it's like a little bit weird if I'm asking her like all these questions about like letters and stuff. So if the assessment isn't done like continuously, like if I ask her like a couple of letters, for example, and then like we go off and do something else, is that okay?
That's
like
fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And also, I think that for the child that you're babysitting, it would be also about, you could present it at, this is an assignment that I have to do for class, and you're just helping me out, right? So it's more about she's helping you instead of you're assessing her, right?
Yeah. Sometimes when I have to like leave to go to class, I'm like, oh, we're going to be learning at the same time or something. So yeah, that's actually a good point. So thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Alyssa, we haven't heard from you. Are you okay?
Yeah, hi. I was just trying to process everything. And like for me, like the little girl that I do the home visits with, she just turned 2 like a couple months ago, and her mom is like, I don't know, like I think her mom needs a lot of help and stuff with it, because her mom also has a 4-month-old that she takes care of. So it's very busy, and when we do the home visits, it's like the mom is very hard to like control the child and all of that. So I feel like for me, I feel like it might be easier to continue with the preschool child. Also because the home visits have been kind of hard because the mom only has Wi-Fi like certain days out of the week because she goes to her parents' house and she doesn't have Wi-Fi at her house. So yeah, so it's been a little bit tricky doing that. So yeah, that's why I might, and like I'm not sure how I'm going to do the assessments though, which I guess I could, because through my observations, like during the class time, they do some kinds of assessments, so I can kind of just like watch that. But yeah, I think like for me, I think it'll be easier to continue with my preschool child, but I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Choose the child that you think you're gonna be able to gather the most information from. And if,
okay, yeah.
And if that works well, then yes. And that's a good point. I mean, the teachers, if you're observing the teachers teach, they're going to be asking questions because they're trying to gauge where the children are developmentally. So you
If
could
we
just
were
be
to stay
observing.
with our pre-K kid, though, how would that affect our profile? Because it asks about the family visit, and those are two different kids.
Right.
Sorry
So
to
no,
butt
so
with them,
then
but you'd be at a disadvantage.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have that information in your profile for your focal child. That wouldn't be, you wouldn't be having that section with data points on your focal child because that would not, you don't have it. You didn't do the home visit for that child.
Okay.
So your profile would only include the assessments, if you're able to do the assessments with your the child that you're observing in the pre-K class, and then your observations, the observations you've collected thus far. It's all, we're inventing as we're going in these times.
Thank you for giving us the option, though, because I was really stressed out about not being able to interact with my pre-K kid at all. And doing the home visit kid is definitely a lot better for me, at least. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I think that's, I'm glad that idea came up because, yeah, it makes sense to go with a child that you have the most data on. If you're trying to build a portfolio, a language and literacy portfolio on a child, you definitely need the data to be able to do that. So the child that you have the most data on, or that you're able to collect the most on from here forward. Yeah, that would make the most sense. Okay, any other last call for questions, concerns? Okie doke. Well, this is recorded, so I'm gonna post it. I'll post it under the assignments, and I'll post it under the profile assignment. So if you need to go back and check for it, or need to tell Jasmine or Caroline where it is, I'll post it there. I'll send an email too saying where it is once it's downloaded and ready to go. Okie doke.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Have a good night, rest of the day.
You as well. Thank you.